Hello, everybody. Thank you for stopping in and watching this video today. We have Bruce Matthews, the Associate Athletic Director of Academics and Support. We're excited to have you here, Bruce. I guess before we get started, give me a little bit of a background. What brought you here to Richmond? Where have you been before?
Well, what brought me to Richmond? So I've been in education since, a long time. I was just thinking about it. It's 20 plus years in education. I've had 20 plus years actually working in athletics. So I worked at another university a long time ago, but my background's always been academic. So I started out as a college professor. And so strangely enough, I worked my way into athletics and advising. So it was still teaching to me.
Right.
But Richmond had an opportunity, a position came open. It was for me getting closer to home. And so I loved it. And actually I was drawn here because of the school. I said, this is a great school. It's a school that values athletics and academics. And that's always been a passion of mine because I was a student athlete many ages ago. And that mattered to me. So that's what I wanted. So that's what brought me here.
Right.
It was actually the school. I said, it's a great institution. And I said, I can't pass up this opportunity. And you probably don't realize this, but my daughter will be here next year as a freshman.
I didn't know that yet. I know we've talked before about she was looking at different schools.
So she's coming here. So I did the recruiting process and everything. But, oddly enough, that was I came here because I said, this would be a great place for my own kid to go to school. And lo and behold, it's finally going to happen.
It's happening. That's great. Because I know, like I said, I remember we talked before, and you had to go on see other schools, and you had to compare.
Other schools, though, and it's funny, and I tell the same stories. Like, I've been a parent, now I have a kid on the other side, and it's, I always laugh because the team and the student athletes and the swimmers are always like, yeah, Bruce, you sound like my dad sometimes, or that's what they said. I'm like, well, I kind of am in a strange way. I'm just like they are, trying to do what's best for you, and put you in the best environment. And so I said, I approach it that way.
Right. Exactly. And I think this kind of leads into my next question. And as you talk is, your relationship with our swimmers and divers and our athletes in general, what is kind of that academic support? What do you do, or what can you provide to, our student athletes throughout their 4 years?
So I have two things I always say to student athletes on academic support and the swimmers. I can give you more help than you want, Right. So don't ever say, hey, we couldn't get help, we couldn't do this and that. The help is always there in a variety of ways, from tutors, from, study hall, from academic skills center. There's a lot of, kind of tricks and tools that we have to draw upon for traditional academic support. But the key thing at Richmond, what academic support really is and what we offer, it's very personal.
Right.
It's kind of catered to that particular student. Because a lot of students, will go, hey, I need a tutor. And so that might not necessarily be the answer for you.
Right.
Just get a tutor. Maybe it's this we need. And trying to discern what works best for each student.
Right.
Because of the size and the intimate nature of Richmond, we can do that. And I always say, that starts with a faculty member, between your relationship with that professor and then my relationship with you and that professor. So it's kind of like a triangle. I said, within that area, that's how we'll offer support. If we agree you need a tutor, then we hire a tutor together to get one who knows that class, that knows that professor. That's the key thing. Use that. And that's where my background as a kind of a former college professor has come in. I'm like, at the end of the day, it's your relationship with that professor that's crucial.
Right.
Use that, work that, talk about it, engage that person. They can offer you help that you could never have imagined.
Right.
That's perfect, because when happens all the time, and a swimmer will say, hey, Bruce, I got this chemistry course, and we're like, hey, I know that professor, and they say, yeah, I've been talking to him, and then we can find the right student to work with that particular swimmer if we need to. So that's the beauty of it. It's a really tight kind of framework, like a little triangle where we just sit right in the middle, and we got help from all different sides.
Right. And and I think that's kind of what I've seen. And I've been in Richmond for 2 years, and not as long as, you've been here. But what I've noticed so quickly is like the relationships with professors, with faculty, with you and our support staff. I think like that's always what shines through at Richmond, and that's like, do you think that like why, what, I guess in an academic setting is what I'm trying to say, like in Richmond's academic setting, how would you describe that? And I describe it as like, I think it's personal. I think it's a relationship, and that's very much like academics at Richmond. But like, how would you describe the academic setting at Richmond?
The academic setting, well, it is personal. on that side. And I always say this, Richmond is really about kind of relationships and how to deepen those relationships.
Right.
And I say that because it's not just with the professor, but it's in the classroom, it's with your peers, because you will spend that time. And, it's kind of like, it's kind of like a pool,
right.
it's a deep pool, and you kind of don't know the depth of it till you get into it. And it's kind of like, hey, let me figure it out. And then all of a sudden you realize there's so much in kind of those depths. There's much more to it.
Right.
Education has always been kind of surface level. Hey, do this, take this test and get out.
Right.
That's not Richmond. Richmond is about big picture, depth, really learning stuff and tackle one issue and think about it, and that's where the real learning comes into play. Because that's where you get the hard questions, like what's next? And that's what Richmond wants for you. And that's kind of, that's the educational setting. And because you're on that journey, you're kind of exploring that pool with others. So you're learning from them too, whether it's faculty or peers. And that's the beauty of it. I mean, I kind of stumbled upon it just coming here. I'm like, I didn't realize it, but imagine seeing these people, you see them, whether, you're swimming, you see them in the classroom, you see them walking across campus. And that's why it's kind of a conversation that occurs 24 hours a day, when you take it back into the dorms and other stuff. But it's kind of the depth of that environment that's so significant and important. It makes us unique.
Right.
And every student has access to it. It's not like some schools, they'll have it just for a few.
Right.
Here, for everybody.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And we'll just, that's that always, I remember when we sit and we talk before with recruits, it always kind of gives me chills, just like hearing that experience, and I think it's something that it's unique, and it's and what I've seen in other schools, I haven't seen that before, is that unique to dive in deep, like you said, and to build those networks. And it's just, it's really, it's astonishing to hear some of the stories of what, not just swimmers and divers have done, but what students have done at Richmond, and like what they've had access to. And just like whether it's research, whether it leads to internships, it's amazing.
I always say everything is possible. I always ask students, be imaginative. Ask, tell me what you want. I always ask this, when I meet a student, what do you want?
Right.
What do you want out of this? And they're like, I'm like, no, really. I mean, if you had you could build it, what would it look like?
Right.
Well, this is what I want. Let's do it. Let's ask for it, because you can do those things here. We have a unique setting. We're small, so you can find the people to help you. We have the resources to do those things.
Right.
That's the beauty of it. I mean, it's just everything is possible. And don't limit yourself like, I don't know if this will happen or what the professor will say. That's where it comes in with me and others, and just having that personal relationship. You can ask those, how do we do this?
Right.
Because you don't have to have the answer.
Right.
But it's like, hey, it's a thought. I had this crazy idea. Throw it out there.
Right.
Let's see what happens.
Exactly.
And, it evolves into something else. And that's the excitement of it. And I tell students, just do that. And it's fun watching students grow over 4 years. And, I've been here long enough now. I've had sisters come through here.
That's crazy.
I've had cousins.
Man, you're selling everybody to come to Richmond.
I know, it's funny because I've had some who've now become coaches.
Wow.
And recruit, so they're, one of their swimmers is now coming here. I'm like, I remember her when she, your coach when she was, 20.
Right.
Like, really? Like, yeah. But none of that has changed the environment of who we are and what we're trying to accomplish. So that's the consistency and kind of it's just a place of opportunity.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Kind of going off a different trail here, and a question that I have for you and that I get a lot is, we have recruits that they'll come in and they're interested in sciences or they're interested in business. But I think one thing that's unique about Richmond is that I think they encourage you to get involved with different things and take different classes, maybe when you first get here, to kind of figure out, what path you want to go. Could you maybe elaborate on that and kind of what that path looks like, and kind of the setup as when you first get here?
Well, I mean, as you know, most successful people are pretty broad-minded and have a lot of different interests. And so, and because you learn from different fields. And so Richmond really kind of accentuates that point. Like, let's learn from different fields, whatever it's, let's say I want to be a scientist, but I still can learn a lot from the humanities, like what questions to ask and things like that. And so we really go after that breadth of knowledge. We want that breadth, and we also have the depth, because of the courses and the faculty relationship. So it goes in different directions. But it's by going in these different directions that you see things through a different lens.
Right.
So, like I said, you become a better business major if you've had courses in, in the sciences. You become a better scientist if you've had courses in business too, if you wanted them. And there's different ways. So it helps you see things through a different lens, and it just makes you stronger. And so we always say, you come to Richmond, I want to be a doctor. I said, well, that's great. I said, but in the end, doctors are basically running small businesses. They deal with people, other doctors. They have a department. They have personal relationships you have to deal with. So there's so much more to it. And that's what we recognize and want to teach those skills kind of while you're here. And you pick them up in different places.
Right.
So that's the cool thing about Richmond. And you just find other interests like you didn't even know you had.
Right.
I had a student one year. She was determined, I'm going to be an accounting major. And then she took a course in where she went and talked about selling drugs in other countries, development of drugs and how they're marketed in other countries. And all of a sudden she goes, I want to be a doctor now. So I was like, okay, let's find it. And I was like, great. And she goes, I can't do it. See, well, let's try.
Right.
And she did. And it was like, this is how we're going to work it.
Yeah.
And so we had to do, so she's in accounting and sciences, and she did both.
Wow. Now, so did she major, minor, double major? What's like?
She majored in accounting, and she did the requisite courses she needed to sit for the MCATs. So basically it's like a minor in pre-health, taking the chemistries and everything else. I used to laugh. I said, your electives are chemistry, physics, things like that. That's what she wanted to do.
Right.
And, and I tell this story because I remember her mother was talking to me because like, Bruce, is this just crazy? I'm like, and my approach was, this is what your daughter wants to do, and I'm going to support her in helping this happen. And that was, I'm not going to get into that. I work with your daughter to do what she wants to help her. And that was the key thing. And I still remember with the day that student graduated, mom still was asking me about it. I'm like, well, she did it. So I don't want to hear her complain about it.
That's, yeah.
So.
But it worked, and I'm sure she's gone on. And it's like you said, you have a background, and so, like, if she goes on to be a doctor, she has a background in accounting, and that's going to come and help down the road. Like, you need those other avenues.
I mean, you need to know how those things operate, and again, I always talk about Richmond's going to help you kind of do things you never imagined you would do. I mean, one of your students I remember she came here, she was thinking of medical school, and she took a class, and all of a sudden her MCAT score was so much better than she ever thought it would be. She's like, I couldn't believe it. And all of a sudden, other doors opened for her for graduate schools, for medical schools. And those are the things. And it was the professors sitting with her, working with her, helping her through that process. So it's just, doing those things, and I can, since I've been here long enough, I mean, I have so many of those stories. They've gone off to become doctors and lawyers and just all kinds of things. It's just fun to watch and see how everybody grows.
Yeah, wow. That's good. I think this is my last question, and I think we've kind of hit on it already, but it's something that I've asked everybody we've talked to through like this series, and it's very simple, but why Richmond? Like, what, like, it's simple, but like, what is Richmond? Why is Richmond special? And I know we've talked a little bit, but give me one more last, like, boom, why Richmond?
I mean, I've been talking about Mitch. I mean, why Richmond? I mean, I would say this. I've been here 16 years, and now this is a school that I selected, along with my daughter. We traveled and went, this was the best school.
Right.
And it was because of the opportunities that it presents to you, and to really, I would say this, Richmond is about, the breadth of your knowledge and the depth, adding, those things together. And then it's really about asking questions. I mean, Richmond is a place for people who want to do things, like get things done, and be, active agents of change, whatever it is, that's what this place is about. There's kind of an ethos to it of like, hey, we're not just here to get a degree. We want to be better. We want to help others. We want to, help our teammates, help our communities, and different things. So it's a mindset of, this is a meaningful place. It's going to do meaningful things when you leave here. And that's what's unique. And because it is so personal, it's not like you're just churned out. I mean, these are conversations you have from start to finish while you're here.
Right.
And I always say this to students when they get here, they go, well, I never thought about those things.
Right.
You start to.
Yeah.
And, you know, you start to, and you don't have to talk about it. It's not necessarily how you talk about it, but it's the life you lead.
Right.
And you know this. You see when they walk out of Richmond, you stand on your own 2 feet.
Right.
I mean, the students are unbelievable. I mean, you know this.
Right.
I always say this: I will match any Richmond student against anybody in the country, and they will
Right.
blow them away. I don't care where you go to school.
Right. Yeah.
Our students are unbelievable in the things they've done.
Right.
And it's just that it's like practice. It's you come in and do it each day. And
Right.
after 4 years, you're like, wow, I didn't think I was that good.
Right.
But you are. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. And it's just, and you, I mean, I'm constantly amazed at our senior class when they come through. And you know this, when they walk out of here, you're like, wow, they got it.
Yeah, they're confident and they've grown and it just, I mean, again, like the alumni stories I hear, I'm always just like, I'm amazed, and like this is so cool and it's so unique to what they go and they know they can accomplish these things. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, and I always tell them, I said, you know, they'll come to me like, Bruce, what do you think I should do? I'm like, you know what you need to do.
Right. Yeah.
And I said, I'll help you with the path. But I said, but you already know, don't you? And they're like,
right.
Yeah, I do. I'm like, okay, let's go for it. Because it's just like they're so amazed about how far they've come and what they've been able to do. And that's what I'm saying. It's just that confidence. Keep moving. And like you said, when you see them, it's like, wow. You know, I'm always humbled by it. I'm like, wow, you're just unbelievable. I said, you know, I laugh. Some of them come to me. I'm like, why are you asking me for advice? I said, you know so much more than I do. I said, but it's just that's how they are. They're just really great. And, you know, and that's just all the students. I mean, it's all the sports, and it's kind of a nice little community they have.